Hello and thank you for tuning in to Middle East Matters here on France 24. I'm Haxi Myers-Belkin. Coming up in the show. Following a deadly attack on a military parade last week, Iran holds a mass funeral service for the victims. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei saying the ambush proves that Iran has a lot of enemies. The UN warns that the international community is losing the battle against famine in war-torn Yemen, with increased fighting severely hampering the distribution of vital aid. And years of war and sectarian conflict in Iraq have left hundreds of thousands of children without parents. We meet one man determined to take in as many of them as he can. We begin in Iran, where at least 25 people have been killed and dozens more wounded after militants disguised as soldiers opened fire on a military parade. Iran's supreme leader has blamed both Riyadh and Abu Dhabi for the attack, threatening airstrikes in retaliation. Catherine Viette explains.
A nation united behind its martyrs. This week, thousands of people gathered in Ahwaz for the funeral of the victims of an attack on Saturday's military parade, broadcast live. In these images on the left, the Revolutionary Guards are marching when suddenly shots ring out. This wounded soldier recalls what happened.
We suddenly realized that armed people disguised as soldiers started to attack us. They opened fire on women and children.
The attack was claimed by the Islamic State group, which broadcast a video as proof. The Iranian government disputes this, instead accusing jihadist separatists of being responsible. The region where the attack took place in the southeast shares a border with Iraq. During the Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein hoped to destabilize the area, populated mainly by Arabs. Since that time, a separatist movement has survived, and Tehran blames Saudi Arabia and the U.S. for supporting them.
Today, those who defend human rights on the international stage must be attentive. All of those small mercenary countries we see in this region are backed by the U.S. They are encouraged by Americans who provide them with the necessary means to commit these crimes, but that won't affect our will and our path.
President Hassan Rouhani positioning Iran as a country besieged by enemies in remarks made just before his trip to New York for the UN General Assembly.
You can count on the Ayatollahs of Tehran to take advantage of this attack, to portray themselves as victims in the eyes of the international community, to say, look, you can't criticize us or our ballistic programs or the repression of the Iranian opponents, because the country faces threat from everywhere, both internal and external.
Relations between Tehran and Washington are particularly tense in the wake of Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the Iranian nuclear deal. The U.S. president has planned a new set of sanctions against Iran to go into effect in November.
According to Save the Children International, over 5 million children are at risk of starving to death in Yemen. The 3-year conflict between Yemen's Saudi-backed government and Houthi rebels linked to Iran has seen food prices soar. This as fighting continues at the port of Hodeida, further threatening the distribution of aid. A warning, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing. Julia Seeger has this report.
Too weak and fragile to cry. Their bodies exhausted by hunger. This is the pediatric service of Hodeida's hospital. 80% of children here are malnourished, and the situation is getting worse every day. A few kilometers away, the Saudi-led coalition is carrying out a major offensive to recapture the rebel Houthi-held city. Hodeida is a lifeline for the country, as 70% of humanitarian aid passes through this port. It's then dispatched to the rest of the country. Any delay in the delivery of food and aid supplies through Hodeida could lead to the death of hundreds of thousands of starving people, especially children.
We treat the child until recovery, but when he returns home, he suffers a regression because there's nothing to eat at home, and so the disease comes back. Sometimes families have to eat leaves from trees to survive.
Yemen was already the region's poorest country before the war. And with soaring food and commodity prices, most families now rely on humanitarian aid. And time is running out. NGOs say 8 million Yemenis now face famine, a situation already labeled by the UN as the 21st century's worst humanitarian crisis.
With the US invasion in 2003 and the subsequent war against the Islamic State group starting in 2014, Iraq has seen year upon year of violent turmoil. Many thousands of children have either lost their parents or been abandoned, but one man has made it his goal to give them a home. Shona Bhattacharya has more.
Where's Hamoudi?
I think he's sleeping.
Where were you? I didn't see you.
Hisham is at the head of a large family. He's greeted with children at every step.
This guy was this big when I took him in. His father died because of the war, and his mother abandoned him.
All these boys are orphans. Hisham started by taking in 1 or 2 off the street and in the comfort of his home. Soon, he was opening an orphanage.
The hardest part at first was that all these street children were drug addicts, and we didn't know anything about it. It's a problem that didn't exist in Iraq before the American invasion of 2003.
Iraq has gone from one war to another. These last few years, Hisham has been taking in child survivors of the Islamic State group. Survivors like Nais. He used to live with his parents in Fallujah, near Baghdad, but his life crumbled when jihadist extremists entered the city.
When the Islamic State group came, they executed lots of people. They killed my mother, and my father disappeared. They also did horrible things to children. I remember one day I was crossing the bridge and they were putting suicide vests on all the kids for them to become suicide bombers. That's when I ran away.
Now you learn how to use a computer. Let's upload a program.
For these street children, school is a distant memory. It's important to make up for lost time, and for the older ones, give them training. 2 years ago, Mustafa was involved in petty crime and spent time in prison. Now he feels life has given him a second chance.
I feel safe here, but it's more than that. Mr. Hisham and the other teachers can be hard on us, but they take care of us. They're looking out for our best interests. It's the first time I've been happy since my mother died.
But like in every family, there are rules, and Mustafa got himself in trouble.
Why are you hiding things from me? Why do you lie? Are you a liar? Is everything you tell me a lie? Go on now. These are the children's iPads. We check which sites they go on, and when we see they've been on violent or pornographic sites, we take their iPads away.
As the sun sets, the orphans enjoy a meal offered by their neighbors. In all, Hisham has given 50 children a safe home. According to the United Nations, 870,000 children have lost their parents in the various conflicts in Iraq.
Saudi Arabia's ongoing diplomatic spat with Canada has affected its economy, maple syrup imports and even its students, many of them ordered by the kingdom to pull out of Canadian universities. Following Ottawa's calls for the release of activists held in Saudi jails, the two countries' relationship rapidly soured, making all the more surprising the appearance of Canada's celebrated Cirque du Soleil in Riyadh to mark the Saudi National Day. Charlie James has his report.
The show must go on, even amid diplomatic disputes. To mark Saudi National Day on Sunday, the country's entertainment authority welcomed a custom, censor-friendly event by Canadian acrobatic troupe Cirque du Soleil. There were doubts the event would happen following last month's fight between the two nations. After Ottawa denounced its jailing of activists, the kingdom expelled Canada's ambassador, suspended flights to the country, and froze all trade. But Saudi Arabia is embracing entertainment, if not personal freedoms. The nation's expanding entertainment sector is one of the highly visible recent changes to Saudi Arabian culture. The first female news anchor also appeared on TV this month, and movie theaters returned this year after a 35-year ban.
It's a beautiful thing. We are so excited to come to the Cirque. This is the first time we've attended such a thing in the kingdom.
32-year-old Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is focusing on entertainment to diversify the country's oil-dependent economy. He recognizes that hosting shows such as Cirque du Soleil can be a powerful tool of soft power, even as human rights organizations criticize the young prince's reforms as largely superficial.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's show. Thank you very much for watching. You can catch this show again and many others on our website, france24.com.
It's the first anniversary of France 24's Spanish language channel. To mark the occasion, our team of journalists has been travelling across South America. An 11,000-kilometre journey, bringing you a series of reports on the continent's economic and cultural diversity. From the Rio Grande to Tierra del Fuego, join us as we explore South America's cultures and communities from September 24th to 30th.